Hello, welcome to Quest for Thunder. I'm Mark. My wife Jean and I are refitting our 1983 Pearson 422, and we're glad you've joined us. If this is your first time visiting Quest for Thunder, please consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell so that you'll receive notification when we upload new content. We're glad you're here. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Welcome to Quest for Thunder and enjoy the video. Thank you. Well, this is the spot where we're going to put the new core. So what I'm doing right now is I'm wetting it out with unthickened epoxy. There's a hole right there. See that?
Oh. Want me to go down and put a piece of tape?
See it? Yeah, it's going to be dripping down there. You're probably going to see it.
Okay. All right, I'll go get it.
Okay.
So
anyway, what I'm doing is I'm putting this unthickened epoxy on the surface because this is where the new core is going to be placed. I'm going to place the new core here. And I'm also getting it up on the edges of this core material. I actually already put thickened epoxy on the edges, but I want a good bond, so I'm just going to go ahead and double. And then I've got a couple of areas right here that I overcut, and so I'm going to fill those with this thickened epoxy as well. This unthickened epoxy as well, so we don't get any water intrusion into the core there. It goes down in there. And a little bit right here. Just put it on there, and then I'll have to lightly sand it. You ready? Yep. So I'm basically doing the same thing to the back of this piece of core that I just did down there, which is basically just, covering, just wetting out the core, and I'm also putting the epoxy on the edges to seal the edges of the core material to make sure that if there's any water that gets in there, which I hope doesn't happen, but if there is, that there's a protective barrier between the wood and the water. So that's what I'm doing. Put it in place right here, like that. Press it down, and voila! Voila! So you see how it flexes? See that?
Yeah.
That's because there's shape to the hull. So in order for this to bond, I'm going to have to weight this down.
Stand there for a few hours.
So and it's going to take a long time for this to set up. So I've got to put weight on it. So.
Hey, wait. Those look like you stole them off
No, those are extras.
my diving belt. They're extras.
These came off of. No, these are extras.
Oh. Are they heavy enough to do the trick?
I think so. Pretty heavy. All right, so here, if you look down here, you can see we have all this weight on here, and what we're hoping to do is make sure that the piece of core material that we put in, which is plywood, is in firm contact with the inner skin, so that it bonds when the epoxy cures. It bonds to that inner skin, and there's a little bit of change of shape, just a tiny little bit in the deck here, and so this end of the core wants to stand up a little bit. So what we've done is we've pushed it in, we've weighted it down with all these are bags of lead shot, and then of course these are big lead weights. I don't know how many pounds we have on here, but a lot, probably 100 pounds of weight right there. So what we'll do is we'll let this sit. We use unfortunately all we have is extra slow hardener, because it's Texas and it gets really, really hot here. And a lot of times in the summertime, we're using this epoxy. We don't have much working time, so we got the extra slow to give us a little more working time. But in the winter or in the cooler months like now, it takes forever for this stuff to set up. So we'll have to wait till tomorrow before we can do anything with it. But if you look right here, you'll see that there's a little bit of a gap. You can see it underneath this plastic. There's a little bit of gap between the core material and the fiberglass. And that gap needs to be filled. Watch out, don't knock this over.
Yep.
And it goes all the way around. And then there's gaps around the, you can see in the back there, if you look in the back of the chain plate, you can see a gap there. I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not. Yeah, you see that gap there? So what we're going to do is come back after this cures and we'll take a thickened epoxy. I've got a little tube of it that I can shoot it out of. And you saw us doing that when we filled these bung holes, these screw holes, when we took the eyebrow off. We'll do the same thing. We'll go all the way around, fill it all up with epoxy, fill that back in with epoxy. That way, nothing is going to leak. There's not going to be any leaking going down into the boat. Finally, we'll get the leak under control. Yeah, it's a real shame that we really didn't realize what was happening with the core sooner. I mean, luckily we caught it, and it's not any worse than this, because it could have been much, much worse. But we did catch it in time. It would have been nice if whoever was trying to stop the leak way back in the day would have used would have taken the plate off and used some epoxy and actually done it right, instead of just squirting a bunch of silicone up in there, because the silicone might have stopped it from coming into the cabin, but it didn't stop it from going into the core. And so that's why we have the issue. Anyway, that's what we're doing. That's going to be the sum total of what we do with this today. We're going to work on the eyebrow on the other side now.